You don't realize someone left you until they're sitting across the table and you're still alone. But the door creaked open. My daughter stepped in, not with a gift or a smile, just a sigh and her phone in hand. "Well," she said, glancing around like the air offended her, "don't expect a party. You're lucky I even showed up." I blinked, no happy birthday, no hug, not even a damn card. She dropped her purse on my kitchen chair, leaned against the counter, and opened a text. "I can't stay long, Dad. I've got a thing later." I looked at the table. One slice of dry yellow cake sat on a plate, the frosting cracked from the fridge. I'd bought it myself, same time I picked up my prescription. I thought maybe she'd bring something. Light a candle. Sing something off-key like her mother used to. "You're really not staying?" I asked. She didn't even look up. "I have plans, what do you expect at your age?" At my age, like I was a busted transmission. "I thought maybe we'd talk," I said. My voice sounded smaller than I meant it to. "You know, share a coffee, remember things." She scoffed. "Dad, we remember things all the time. What's left to say?" "A thousand things," I wanted to scream. But instead, I sat down across from her and stared at the cake. It was sweating under the kitchen light, a ring of moisture around it like it was embarrassed for me. "You remember when I taught you to ride your bike?" I muttered. She looked up, seriously. "You skinned your knee. You bled like hell, but you didn't cry, not once." She rolled her eyes. "You always bring that up. It was a bike, Dad, let it go." "Let it go? Let it go like I let go of your mother's hand when she was dying. Let it go like I let go of my pension to pay off your student loans. Let it go like the down payment I signed to get you into that big house you brag about on Facebook but never invite me to." "Okay," I said, nodding, letting go. She stood, checked her watch. "Look, I stopped by, all right. Can we not do the guilt trip?" "No guilt," I said quietly, "just cake." She sighed like the weight of my love was a boulder around her neck. "I'll take it to go." I didn't move. I didn't offer to cut it. I just watched her pick up her purse and walk toward the door. Halfway there, she paused. "You know, it'd be easier if you didn't get so sentimental. It's just a birthday." And then she was gone. The house fell silent again, a silence that screamed louder than anything. I sat back in the chair, the old wood creaking beneath my spine. The cake stared at me, untouched, frosting cracking like the edges of my heart. I looked at the empty seat across from me and whispered, "You know what hurts? It's not the forgetting, it's the remembering all alone." I reached for the cake, took a bite. It was dry, crumbly, bitter. I chewed anyway, I'd swallowed worse. If someone's listening, don't let silence swallow your story. Say it, write it, speak it before it rots inside you. That's the only thing that keeps you from becoming a ghost while you're still breathing. The kitchen light buzzed overhead. Outside, a neighbor's dog barked at nothing, or maybe at something I just couldn't see anymore. I looked across the table again. Not a soul, just the outline of where love used to sit. And the realization settled like dust in my lungs. She didn't forget me. She stopped caring. And that was louder than silence. But I sat with my back straight, the untouched cake between us, and stared at the chair across from me, empty, but no longer waiting. It's one thing to be forgotten. It's another to be remembered as a burden. But I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the table long after the door had shut behind her, my daughter, my only child, the one I once carried on my shoulders through county fairs and summer storms. Now she couldn't stand to sit across from me for more than 10 minutes. The kitchen light buzzed overhead, casting a pale ring on the table. The half-eaten slice of birthday cake sagged under its own weight. I pushed it aside. I reached for the drawer near the fridge, same place it had always been. I pulled out the photograph. Sarah, my wife, my anchor. Her smile caught in a candid frame, one I'd taken in the garden, dirt on her knees, sun in her hair. I set the picture upright, let it look at me like it used to. I tried, I whispered. I traced the edge of the frame with my thumb. I thought I raised her right. The silence responded like a confession booth. She used to call me her hero, said I was stronger than the storm. I chuckled bitterly. Now she shows up late and tells me I'm lucky she remembered. My voice cracked. I leaned back and closed my eyes. Memories hit like waves, her tiny fingers tugging my sleeve, her backpack too big for her shoulders, her voice yelling from the bleachers. That's my dad. Back when I mattered. Now I was the thing she avoided, the weight she didn't want to carry. Maybe I failed her. Maybe I gave her too much and taught her too little about decency. But then again, maybe she just stopped seeing me. Stopped seeing the man who sold his truck so she could have braces. The man who worked through arthritis to pay her tuition. I looked around the house, clean, too clean, empty really. No music, no laughter, just a man and his regrets. And that's when it hit me, the will. I had written it years ago, right after Sarah passed. Grief makes you generous. I'd given my daughter everything. The house, the savings, even the little lake cabin Sarah loved. I'd done it thinking it would bring us closer. But now she saw me as something expired. A slow-walking inconvenience with bad knees and too many stories. I stood up, joints cracking, and walked to the cabinet where I kept the fireproof box. Clicked it open. Inside, the envelope. Last will and testament. Her name was right there, bold, smiling up at me like it had won something. I set it on the table and stared. "You'll get everything, huh?" I muttered. "And I'll die like this, with dry cake in my mouth and your pity in my pocket." I shook my head slowly. "No." I folded the will shut, slid it back into the envelope, and tapped the table twice with my knuckles like sealing a deal with myself. "If I'm going out, it won't be like this," I said aloud. "I may be old, but I'm not done." The air in the house shifted, still quiet, still cold, but something inside me flickered, not rage, not yet. Resolve. That night I didn't sleep in my bed. I stayed at the kitchen table, facing the photo of Sarah. "I don't know what happened to her," I whispered, "but I'm going to find out." I stared down at the will again. She wants everything, then she'll earn nothing. And if someone's still listening, someone like me, sitting in silence, wondering how it all fell apart, don't wait. Don't leave your story in someone else's hands. Tell it, change it, own it. Because the minute they think you're too tired to fight, that's when you stand back up. I turned the lights off, sat back down across from the ghost of my wife, and vowed to never be a ghost in my own home again. Sometimes betrayal doesn't come all at once. It drips in slowly until you drown in it. I couldn't sit still the next morning. The house felt like a museum of my own foolishness. I wandered into the study, dust floating through the slats of sunlight. Sarah always hated how I stacked papers. "One day you'll lose something important in that mess," she used to tease, sipping her tea from the blue mug. I started organizing, drawer by drawer, folder by folder. And then I saw it. A bent, faded birthday card slipped between two old bills. I knew the handwriting instantly, round, uneven, the way she used to write when she was still in high school. I opened it slowly, careful not to tear the crease. The front was simple, a mountain range in gold lettering, "To the strongest man I know." Inside in blue ink, "You'll always be my rock, Dad. Don't let me fall. I love you so much. Happy birthday." I stared at that line until the ink blurred. Don't let me fall. She had clung to me once, leaned on me when boys broke her heart and when college loans made her cry. Now she came into my home and told me I was lucky she showed up at all. I sat back in the old leather chair, card in hand, the weight of those words pressing down like lead. My chest ached. Where did she go? The girl who used to make me spaghetti on Father's Day and tape construction paper hearts to my steering wheel. I wiped my eyes with the back of my hand and reached for the bottom drawer. The envelope was still there. The will. Signed, witnessed, notarized, all proper, all legal. I'd written it 5 years after Sarah passed. I didn't want to leave a mess behind. I thought I was doing the right thing. My lawyer had called it generous. Everything goes to your daughter, he'd said. You sure you don't want to set up some conditions? I had laughed back then. She's earned it, she's all I have. Now I wondered what she had earned. $7.5 million, the house, my pension, the trust Sarah and I built for future grandkids who never came. I spread the pages across the desk. My name, her name, the numbers cold and exact. And suddenly, my hands started to shake. Not from age, not from arthritis. From betrayal. You take all of it, I muttered, and still leave me alone with a dry slice of cake. I looked at the card again, don't let me fall, and laughed bitterly. Too late. My fingers hovered over the will. That signature, hers, next to mine on the acknowledgement page. I remembered her smile when I told her everything would be hers. You deserve it, sweetheart, I had said. Just promise me you'll look after me when I'm older. She had nodded, eyes glassy. Of course, Dad, always. Liar. I stood slowly, the ache in my knees dull compared to the one in my gut. Not anymore, I whispered. That's when something in me shifted. A pressure valve finally cracked. I folded the will, slid it back into the envelope, and placed it beside the card. 2 documents, 2 versions of her, one I loved, one I no longer recognized. The pen sat nearby, cold and heavy. I didn't pick it up yet. But I would. Soon. Because silence wasn't protection anymore. It was complicity. And I had protected her long enough. I stared down at the will with one hand on the card and whispered to the empty room, next time you fall, it won't be me catching you. Legacies aren't inherited. They're handed over by trust, and once trust is gone, so is the legacy. Helen's office hadn't changed in 20 years. Same brown leather chairs, same framed law degree on the wall, same faint smell of coffee and paper that clung to every corner. She was the one who handled Sarah's estate when cancer took her, the one who walked me through the mess of grief and signatures. I trusted her then. I trusted her now. She poured me a cup of coffee and slid it across the desk. You sounded urgent on the phone. It is. I wrapped my hands around the mug. The heat steadied me. Yesterday was my birthday, 75. She gave me a thin smile. Congratulations, not everyone gets that far. Yeah, well, I muttered. Sometimes it feels like punishment. Her eyes narrowed. What happened? I took a long breath, staring into the black coffee. My daughter showed up, 10 minutes. No gift, no hug, no cake, just her words. Don't expect a party. You're lucky I even showed up. Helen's face didn't move. She'd heard everything in this office, divorces, betrayals, families ripping each other apart over land. But even so, something in her jaw tightened. She said that, she asked. She said that, I replied, and then she left, like I was an appointment she forgot to cancel. Helen leaned back, fingers steepled. And what do you want to do about it? I pulled the envelope from my coat and set it on the desk. This is my will. It gives her everything. $7.5 million in estate, house, pension, trust, all of it. Helen nodded slowly. I remember drafting it. Well, I want to change it. My voice cracked, but I didn't lower it. She told me not to expect a party, but she expects my legacy. Helen tapped the desk once. A will is a voice from the grave, you know that. Once you're gone, it speaks for you, no one else. Is this what you wanted to say? I looked at Sarah's picture in my wallet, tucked behind the license. My late wife's eyes still shone, still asked me to protect what we built. I looked back at Helen. No, I said, not anymore. Helen studied me for a moment. Then she raised an eyebrow, not judgment, just a quiet, professional signal. You're sure? That eyebrow had stopped men in their tracks in probate hearings, but I didn't flinch. Prepare the amendment, I said. She opened a drawer, pulled out fresh forms. Be aware this won't go unnoticed. Removing your only child, it sparks a war. Then let it spark, I answered. I've fought worse wars. She began typing. The printer hummed to life. Pages slid out, legal ink already demanding signatures. The sound felt like a drumbeat. As she worked, she said quietly, "You don't owe anyone your silence, especially not when silence is used against you." I nodded. She thinks I'll die humiliated. Alone, she's wrong. Helen finished typing, gathered the papers into a neat stack and pushed them across the desk with a pen. Here it is, the amendment. Your assets redirected to the beneficiaries you name. Where do you want it to go? To the Veterans Foundation and a scholarship fund in Sarah's name. My throat tightened when I said my wife's name. At least then the money means something. Helen gave a small nod, almost like approval. Good, that's clean, uncontested. I picked up the pen. My hand trembled, but not from weakness, from clarity. I signed my name slowly, each stroke an ending to years of blind trust. When it was done, Helen gathered the pages, stamped them, sealed them. There, she said, it's official. She has no claim anymore, not unless you put her back in. I won't, I said. Helen folded her hands. Then you'd better be ready. She won't go quietly. I stood, the chair creaking behind me. Neither will I. I left the office with the papers tucked under my arm, the late afternoon sun burning sharp against my face. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a ghost wandering my own life. I felt like a man sharpening his voice. Outside Helen's office, I paused in the light, exhaled, and whispered, "The war starts here." Sometimes it takes an old soldier to tell you the war never ended. It just changed battlefields. James sat at the end of the bar like a statue chipped from war and whiskey. Same denim jacket, same steel eyes. I hadn't seen him since Sarah's funeral. Still drinking that bottom-shelf crap? I asked as I eased into the stool beside him. He smirked, didn't look at me, still pretending good whiskey changes anything. I ordered two, neat, no small talk. We sat there a while, letting the noise of the bar fill in the silence we didn't have the words for. Men like us didn't need pleasantries. We lived through darker things than birthday disappointments. She told me not to expect a party, I said eventually. James tilted his glass, watching the amber swirl. Your daughter. Walked in, mocked me, walked out. He said nothing. He just nodded, slow and heavy, like a man who'd already guessed the punchline before I got to it. I changed the will, I added, took her name off, gave it to a vet foundation and a scholarship fund. James let out a single laugh. About time. I looked over at him. You're not surprised? Nope. He turned to me now. You've been telling yourself for years she's still that little girl who used to jump into your arms after school, but that ain't who she is now, and you know it. I stared down at my glass. She used to call me her hero. James knocked back his whiskey and set it down hard. You can be someone's hero and still end up their stepping stone. Blood doesn't mean loyalty. You know that. The truth stung, because it was the same thing I used to say about dead brothers in the desert, just never thought I'd say it about my own child. James reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a USB drive. He slid it across the bar to me. What's this? Something you need to hear. Got it from a mutual acquaintance. Your daughter's got a mouth when the drinks are flowing. I blinked. You bugged her. No, he said, voice flat. She bragged about you at a dinner party. Someone recorded it, thought I should know, thought you should. I didn't touch the drive. I just stared at it. She say anything I don't already know. James looked at me hard. She said, and I quote, once the old man kicks off, it's cash-in time. I already picked the countertops for the kitchen remodel. Silence. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Just the sound of the bar, the clinking glasses, the soft hum of people living lives I no longer understood. James poured the last of his whiskey into my glass. You raised her, yeah, but you didn't raise this. Don't let guilt write your will. I nodded slowly, took the drive. My fingers were cold. Thanks, I murmured. He clapped my shoulder. Hell of a thing watching your heart break in slow motion, but you're awake now. That's what matters. Outside, the air was sharp. I walked home under a sky so clear it hurt. The streets were quiet, the kind of quiet that presses into your bones. Back in the house, I slid the drive into my laptop. Her voice came through the speakers like poison in my ears. Once the old man kicks off. Over and over, the clink of wine glasses, laughter, that laugh I used to know, that voice I paid to send through college. I sat in the dark, listening to it again and again, not because I needed proof, but because I needed to stop making excuses. Don't let guilt write your will. No, never again. I shut the laptop, leaned back in my chair. In the silence, I could still hear her voice, and I swore I'd never let it be the last word. Betrayal doesn't always scream. It whispers through paperwork, signatures, and silence. The woman behind the counter smiled like she was trained to, tight, polite, and glazed over. I'm just here to review the records for my trust account, I said, tapping the folder I'd brought. The one labeled Emergency Family Fund should be under my full name. It's been untouched since 2015. She nodded and typed, "Give me a moment, Mr. Hartley." I glanced around the bank. New faces, glossy walls, a coffee machine that didn't belong. Everything polished, everything changed. She came back, printed papers in hand. "Here you go. Is there anything specific you're looking for?" "No," I replied, taking the printout. "I just want to make sure what's mine stayed mine." The numbers punched me in the chest. Withdrawn $10,000, $12,000, $18,000, then a $50,000 lump sum, I muttered, my voice cracked. That's over $90,000 in total. She blinked. "The authorized signer says here it was your power of attorney." My power of, I stopped, my jaw tightened. I never assigned one for that account, ever. She shifted, uneasy. "The file says otherwise." I stood. "Get me the branch manager now." His name was Reynolds. Young, clean suit, too many apologies in his eyes. He led me into his office with the kind of caution usually reserved for explosives. I laid the printouts on his desk. "I didn't authorize any of these. I never signed over power of attorney. I want to see the forms." He hesitated. "Mr. Hartley, we..." "Now." He left. Minutes later, he returned with a thin manila envelope. He placed it between us like a loaded weapon. I opened it, my name, my address, my signature, but it looked like someone trying to copy a memory. "This isn't mine," I said flatly. "It's close, but look at the tail on the Y in Hartley. That loop, I never write like that, and the M in Michael, it's crooked." Reynolds cleared his throat. "We had doubts, but the ID used matched. A woman came in. She had all your paperwork. She said you'd been hospitalized and needed funds moved discreetly." My mouth was dry. Was her name Rebecca Hartley? He nodded. I looked him dead in the eyes. "She's my daughter, and I haven't been hospitalized in over a decade." He paled. "You just handed her $50,000 from a locked fund with a forged signature," I said, voice shaking. "You better pray your legal department's ready." He reached into a drawer. "Let me print you full copies, camera logs too. We archive all teller interactions." I waited, silent, heart thudding like boots in sand. When he came back, he handed me a stack. Transaction logs, security timestamps, photocopies of every form she filled. She said it was urgent, family emergency. She cried, actually, Reynolds murmured. "We should have checked deeper." "No," I said, tucking the papers into my folder. You believed a pretty story, just like I did. But I left the bank into sunlight that felt too bright. My feet were heavy on the sidewalk. Back home, I spread the documents on the table beside the copy of my will, the USB drive from James, and the birthday card she once wrote. "You'll always be my rock, Dad." Now I knew why she climbed me, for height. The betrayal wasn't just cruel, it was methodical. This wasn't emotional. This was theft dressed in family. I slid the papers into the folder, labeled the tab, Bank Fraud 2023. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about truth, and making sure her lies didn't outlive me. Some truths aren't whispered in court. They bleed out over dinner, between the wine and the lies. I laid the table with the same care I once did when Rebecca was 10 and still called me daddy. Napkins folded neat. Her favorite wine, Cabernet, the expensive kind. Medium rare steak, just like she liked it. She arrived 20 minutes late, stilettos clicking like a warning shot. She kissed the air beside my cheek. "You're really trying, huh?" "I figured we could talk," I said, keeping my tone even. "About family, about us." Her eyes darted to the wine bottle. "You finally realize pushing me away on your birthday was a mistake." I handed her a glass. "Maybe I overreacted. Maybe I just want to hear how you're doing." She smiled tight. "Well, that's new." We sat, the steak sizzled under candlelight. I chewed slowly, watching her more than tasting. "Still working for that PR firm?" I asked. "Of course," she said, "but money's tight, the economy's brutal." I nodded, feigning concern. "You still living in that big place over on Langford?" She paused. "Yeah, rent's insane." "I thought you owned it." She took a sip of wine. "Sort of, there's a trust structure around it." I kept my hand steady beneath the table, thumb gently pressing, record on my phone tucked in the cloth napkin on my lap. "Trust structure," I repeated. "Tell me more." Her jaw shifted. "Why are you asking so many questions all of a sudden?" "Just curious. I remember setting up that emergency fund back in the day, wondered if it helped." Her expression hardened. "You gave me crumbs, Dad. You act like you funded my life. You gave me just enough to feel guilty if I asked for more." I set down my fork. "Crumbs." She leaned forward now, wine making her bold. "You don't get it. Growing up in your crusty little two-bedroom house while my friends had vacations and ponies, I worked twice as hard to fit in." I blinked. "You had private school, you had a car at 16, you had every door I could open." She laughed. "Oh, please, a used Civic and a scholarship you filled out for me. That's not a legacy, that's survival." I said nothing, just let her talk. "You owe me," she continued, voice rising. "For the years I spent pretending mediocrity was enough. For the fact that I didn't jump ship and find a real father figure." I swallowed hard. My mouth was dry, but I let the silence stretch. She mistook it for submission. "Is this why you invited me here?" she asked, smirking. "So you could pass your guilt around like gravy?" "No," I said softly. "I just wanted to remember who I raised." She stood, brushing invisible crumbs off her designer blazer. "You've remembered enough. I have a life to get back to." She didn't hug me, didn't even glance at the dishes or the picture of her mother still framed on the mantel. The door clicked shut behind her like a final word. I sat there alone, the echo of her words hanging in the air like smoke. "You owe me, for raising me in mediocrity." I reached under the napkin and stopped the recording, played it back, her voice, her venom, her confession. Clear as a bell. Another nail. But she thought it was dinner. She didn't know it was deposition. There's a silence that comes with signing away a bloodline. It doesn't echo, it settles. But Helen looked up from the folder, her reading glasses low on her nose. "I've drafted it exactly as discussed. Are you sure?" I didn't answer right away. I looked around her office. The same shelves filled with tax codes and case files. the dusty photo of her golden retriever still framed behind her desk lamp. All familiar, all solid. Yes, I said finally, I'm sure. She nodded once and passed the pen across the table. This amendment officially removes Rebecca Hartley as primary beneficiary of your estate, valued at $7.5 million. Her voice was clinical, but her eyes studied me like a doctor watching a patient make a hard call. In her place, she continued, the entire estate will be split between the Hartley Veterans Endowment and the Caroline Hartley Memorial Scholarship Fund. I pressed the pen to paper. My hand didn't shake this time, the ink soaked in smooth, clean, permanent. I want the scholarship to go to single mothers, I said, ones who work 2 jobs and still come home to help with homework. Helen made a small smile, like your wife. Yes, I whispered, exactly like her. She closed the folder, crisp and final. I'll file it today, it's airtight. If she contests, she'll lose. She will push, I said. That's who she is now. Helen leaned back. She'll try, but unless she finds a time machine and changes her behavior 10 years ago, she won't win. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. It's strange, I murmured. You raise someone, feed them, read them bedtime stories, and one day you're writing them out like a line of expired ink. Helen didn't respond. She didn't have to. Cutting blood, I said, it's not clean. No, she agreed softly, but sometimes it's necessary to stop the bleeding. I picked up the signed amendment, looked it over one more time, then slid it back into her hands. She placed it into a large manila envelope, stamped and sealed it with care, then turned to her scanner. The machine beeped softly, my signature now immortal. You've made a just decision, she said without turning around. I've seen worse. Parents who leave fortunes to monsters because they fear loneliness more than legacy. I feared both, I admitted, but now I fear her more. She turned to face me. This will stand. I stood. My legs felt heavy, but my spine was straighter than it had been in weeks. On my way out, I paused by her desk. Thank you, Helen, for everything. She touched my shoulder. Caroline would have done the same. Back home, the light in the hallway flickered, the way it always did when the bulb got loose. I didn't fix it. Not tonight. I went into the study and pulled out the will folder, fat now, full of amendments, bank records, recordings. I took Caroline's photo from the mantel. She was smiling in it, just slightly, holding a tray of brownies she'd made for the neighborhood kids. I set her picture on top of the folder. For you, I said softly, for him, not for her. Her face looked right at home beside Justice. The ones who betray you don't ask how you are. They ask what you still have left. The knock on the door wasn't gentle. It had rhythm, entitled, impatient. I opened it slow. There she was. Lipstick too bright for the morning, eyes too alert to be casual. Dad, she smiled, stepping past me without being invited. You didn't answer my texts. I was busy. She glanced around the house like a realtor, eyes sweeping the furniture, pausing at the sideboard where I kept Caroline's china. I was worried, she said. You've been so quiet lately, I thought maybe your heart. It's still beating. She laughed like we were sharing a joke. Good to know. I gestured toward the couch. Sit if you want. She sat, crossing her legs like she was gearing up for an interview. How's your back? You still seeing Dr. Kramer? Switched doctors. Oh, why? Didn't like being asked questions. I wasn't ready to answer. Her eyes narrowed just slightly. She reached into her purse and pulled out a vitamin bottle. I brought your B12. I know you forget these. I didn't take it. You came all this way to check on my vitamin levels, I asked. She waved her hand. I also wanted to see how you're managing things. You know, house, utilities, taxes. It's a lot for someone your age. I manage fine. She leaned forward, lowering her voice like a conspirator. Dad, just be honest. Are you struggling with anything? Struggling. Bills, paperwork, that sort of thing, I mean. If anything happens and the will isn't updated properly, it could cause issues. There it was. I let the silence stretch. Her eyes darted to the study door behind me. I could help, she said. Look through some documents, just make sure everything's streamlined. I met her gaze. You worried about me or about what you think is yours? She blinked. That's unfair. Is it? She stood suddenly. You've always assumed the worst about me. No, I said, just recently. She adjusted her purse strap, trying to compose herself. I'm just trying to protect what's right. Right for who? Her smile returned, sharp as a blade. I placed them in a fireproof envelope and slid it into the hidden compartment in the back of the desk. Locked it again. She was circling. I could feel it. The fake concern, the probing questions, the sudden interest in my vitamins and taxes, it all reeked of desperation dressed as daughterhood. I rested my hand on the desk, felt its solid grain beneath my palm. Not anymore, I whispered. What? Her smirk was still in the air, but the desk was locked, and the old man she thought she knew was gone. Power doesn't always return with thunder. Sometimes, it's just a phone call and a slow smile over black coffee. What? The phone rang at 7:43 a.m. sharp. Too early for pleasantries, just early enough for truth. Helen, I said, already knowing. Her voice was low, deliberate. She tried to access the probate office records. I didn't speak. Used her married name first, she continued. When that didn't work, she tried her maiden, claimed she was clarifying paperwork on behalf of her father. And she doesn't have power of attorney. She's not listed on the file. She was denied access. The clerk flagged it and notified me as your estate attorney. I exhaled slowly. My knuckles flexed around the coffee mug. She's rattled, Helen said. Something in your behavior spooked her. Good. She knows something changed. She just doesn't know what yet. She's going to push harder. Let her, Helen said. Everything is filed, time-stamped, witnessed, sealed. The paper trail is bulletproof. There was a pause, then her voice softened. You okay? I am now. What? I set the phone down and walked to the window. Same soft gray light spilling across the backyard. The trees swayed like they had secrets. I poured another cup of coffee. The smell curled up like an old friend. She knew. Not everything, not yet, but enough. That call confirmed it. The panic had started. That quiet anxiety that turns confidence into suspicion. The same way a con artist gets nervous when the mark starts asking questions. She'd always been so sure of herself, that I was too soft, too tired, too sentimental. She never noticed the shift in my eyes last week, the way I stopped asking if she was happy. She hadn't caught the fact that I'd changed my morning routine. I stopped checking my voicemail first. I checked my folder. She didn't know about the lock on the study drawer, or the amendment Helen and I notarized with precision. But now she knew something had shifted. I sat at the kitchen table, placed the steaming cup in front of me. Caroline's old seat across from me looked just as it did on the morning we bought this house, her tea mug still on the shelf. I spoke into the empty room. She knows. It felt good to say it, final, solid. I wasn't chasing my daughter's affection anymore. I wasn't bending under guilt. I wasn't giving her the benefit of the doubt she never earned. I took a sip, bitter, strong, just right. But Helen had said something once back when she handled Caroline's estate. I was lost, disoriented by grief. She said, grief is a fog, but injustice is a fire. One clears the other. Now I understood. This wasn't grief anymore. It was focus. But later that afternoon, I walked out to the mailbox, a single envelope, utility bill. As I turned to head back inside, I spotted tire tracks near the curb. Fresh. She'd driven by, probably hopping to catch a glimpse, maybe even hopping I'd wave her in like nothing had changed. I didn't. I locked the door. Back inside, I opened the desk, checked the files. Everything was in place. The envelope with the amendment, the copies of the forged withdrawal, the recording of her venom over dinner. I added a sticky note. Attempted access to probate, 7:43, Helen notified. I closed the drawer, locked it, sat back in the chair, and smiled. She had knocked on the wrong door this time, and now the locks were mine. Some people aren't afraid of justice. They're afraid of being seen for who they really are. The article hit the local paper just after breakfast. Veterans Foundation announces historic bequest from local retiree. There was even a quote from the director. We're honored to receive this contribution in memory of a decorated serviceman and his late wife, whose legacy will now live on through scholarship and support. They didn't print the number, but they didn't have to. This town's small. The moment someone's name gets mentioned with the word millions, it spreads faster than smoke in a dry field. By noon, the phone had rung 6 times. Nancy from church said she saw the post online. Bob from the VFW left a voicemail, congratulating me. Even the mailman grinned when he handed over a package. Didn't know we had royalty on this block, he joked. I smiled politely, just doing what's right. But I knew it wouldn't take long, and I was right. At 2:16 p.m., tires squealed outside. I looked out the window and saw her. Hair wild, no makeup, phone in hand, stomping up the driveway like a woman on a warpath. I stepped outside before she could bang on the door. "Are you insane?" she shouted. "You're giving away my inheritance." I didn't answer. I've been your daughter for 42 years, and you'd rather give everything to strangers. Still, I said nothing. She jabbed a finger at my chest. What is this? Revenge? Punishment? Some twisted guilt trip? I pulled my phone from my pocket, hit record. Her eyes caught it. Are you recording me? I didn't answer. You're losing it, Dad. You're senile. This isn't you. This is some manipulative phase. I should have had you declared incompetent when I had the chance. The neighbors were already peeking through blinds. One porch door creaked open. She didn't care. Or maybe she did, but her rage was louder than her shame. You think a bunch of medals and old stories matter more than your own blood. Mom would have never allowed this. At that, something inside me tightened. I lowered the phone. Don't bring her into this. She scoffed. I'll bring up whatever I damn well please. You owe me everything. You always have. I raised the phone again. She realized what she just said. Her eyes widened for a beat. Then she turned, storming back to her car, cursing under her breath. The car door slammed. Tires screamed again. She was gone. I stood there a while. The wind had picked up. Leaves rustled along the driveway. I looked across the street. Mr. Harlan from next door stood at his mailbox. He gave me a slow nod. No pity in his face, just understanding. Inside, I transferred the video to my backup drive, then again to Helen's encrypted folder. Clear audio, clear footage, no edits needed. She'd screamed it herself, about the money, about entitlement, about incompetence. She gave me everything I needed. And she didn't even ask if I was okay. Later that evening, I sat by the fireplace. I played the voicemail from the veterans director again. We just want you to know how grateful we are. Your wife's memory will be honored in every single name we help. I stared at the flames. No medals on the wall, no plaques, just the sound of something burning clean. She wanted the spotlight, and now the whole town was watching her unravel. There's a difference between anger and honor. One burns fast, the other burns steady. I sat on the back porch before sunrise. No wind, no bird song, just the kind of silence you earn. My coffee had gone cold in my hands. I hadn't touched it. Instead, I stared at the ring on my finger, the same one I wore through war zones and hospitals. The same one Caroline slipped on my hand when I was 24 and too stubborn to know what love cost. Her voice still lived in this porch wood, in the corners of the house. If we raise her right, we'll never have to teach her right from wrong. She'll feel it. I thought we had. God help me, I thought we had. But my father wasn't a soft man. He worked steel in a Pennsylvania mill until the heat warped his spine, but I never saw him complain. He used to say, "A man's value isn't in what he gives, it's in what he expects back." And I expected nothing, just decency, just love. I gave her everything else. That time I took overtime for months to afford her piano lessons, even though she quit after 3 weeks. The night I sold my vintage rifle collection to cover her college textbooks when financial aid fell through. The loan for her first car, the down payment for her house, the bail when her first husband left and the credit card bills kept rolling in. I told myself, that's what fathers do. But now I saw the rot in the foundation I'd laid, not from lack of love, but from enabling a heart that never learned gratitude. I thought of that moment last week, her in the driveway, screaming about owed inheritance, about senility. That wasn't my daughter. Or maybe it was. Maybe I just hadn't wanted to see it. I walked to the study, opened the drawer, took out an old photograph. Caroline holding our daughter at the hospital, swaddled, red-faced, perfect. Back then I'd promised myself she would never know hunger, fear, or abandonment. I kept that promise, but I never promised she'd know humility. I pulled out the manila folder, the one marked Estate Final. Next to it, the USB with the driveway video. Underneath, the notarized letters to the Veterans Foundation and the scholarship trust in Caroline's name. Everything airtight, no loopholes. And beneath it all, the letter I had written in pencil but never sent. To my daughter, it began. I loved you more than my own comfort. I bent my back so you could stand upright, but I will not bend my name for you. I stood there for a long time, thinking about my father's calloused hands, thinking about the photo Caroline kept in her wallet, not of vacations or beaches, but of us holding our newborn in a modest kitchen, grinning like fools. We didn't need millions. We needed meaning. There was a knock at the door. I didn't move to answer it. Eventually it stopped. Whoever it was would have to wait. Because this moment was mine. I looked back at the photo again, not with sorrow but with steel. She had my blood, but she'd never carry my name again. Revenge wasn't about her anymore. It was about honoring the man I promised my father I'd become. Some endings don't come with thunder, just the sound of a chair sliding back and a name not being called. The room was smaller than I expected. Helen's conference space, quiet, neutral, the kind of place where final words were treated like scripture. A pot of coffee steamed in the corner. No pastries, no flowers, just 4 chairs, one long table, and the weight of everything I'd built across a lifetime. James sat beside me, wearing his pressed military blazer. No medals this time, just the pin Caroline gave him at her funeral, a tiny dove, white enamel chipped at the edge. Helen arrived on time as always, black folder in hand. No daughter. She'd been officially removed from notification. No legal right to object. No invitation to this room. "Ready?" Helen asked, her voice soft. I nodded. She opened the folder. This is the formal reading of the last will and testament of full name Redacted, dated and executed in accordance with the laws of the state. My heart didn't race. It simply said, to the Veterans Honor Foundation, I leave $3 million to be allocated toward housing, medical aid, and transitional support for retired service members and their families. James's hand tightened slightly on the chair. To the Caroline M. Scholarship Fund, I leave $3.5 million to be awarded annually to underprivileged youth pursuing studies in nursing, education, and mental health services, in memory of the woman who gave everything to everyone. I blinked once, held it. Helen's voice didn't crack, but mine did. To the Oak Ridge Church, the VFW Post 142, and the Mid-State Literacy Project, $500,000 split evenly, with instructions to serve the community that raised me. She paused. To the individual previously listed as beneficiary, no designation has been made. This decision was made with full mental competence, legal advice, and personal conviction. The silence that followed didn't feel cruel. It felt necessary. James reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a silver flask. He unscrewed the top, poured a little into his coffee. Lifted it slightly. To truth. I looked at him, no smile, just a long, tired exhale. To silence, I whispered. Helen closed the folder gently. I'll file the final paperwork tomorrow. Press may pick it up again, depending on the foundation's release. Are you prepared for that? I am, I said. She didn't ask about the daughter. She didn't need to. I leaned back, eyes flicking to the wall, a framed photo of Helen's law school class. Dozens of fresh faces, eager and clueless. My face was worn now, skin like cracked leather, but I didn't feel old. I felt used, then discarded, then remade. James stood first. Need a ride? No, I said. I'm gonna walk for a bit. He nodded, handed me the flask. For later. I slipped it into my coat. Helen reached out before I left. Not a handshake, just a touch on the arm. You did the hard thing, she said. Most never do. I just stopped doing the easy thing, I replied. She nodded, that too. Outside, the wind had picked up. Leaves skittered across the sidewalk, red and gold like rusted metals. I walked slowly, feeling the sun against my cheek. I didn't feel light, but I felt clean. Her name wasn't spoken, and in that silence I finally heard my own again. Some storms don't need thunder, just the right truth whispered loud enough for the world to hear. The knock came hard. Fist to wood, no patience, no respect. I didn't move at first, just sipped my tea. Then the screen door screeched open. Open the damn door. Her voice thundered through the house like a bomb going off. I stood slowly, bones creaking, heartbeat steady. I walked to the living room window and peeked through the curtain. She stood in the yard, wild hair, sunglasses askew, her car halfway up the curb like she'd skidded into the moment without thinking. Neighbors stirred from their porches, 2 phones already pointed in her direction. I opened the front door, just enough for her to see my face. You think this is funny, she spat, storming toward the steps. You think humiliating me in front of the whole damn city is okay. I think you should lower your voice, I said. You're not helping yourself. She laughed sharp and cracked. You took everything from me. No, I said, still calm. You threw it away. She climbed the steps fast, eyes wild. You selfish old bastard, you're giving it to strangers, to some charity, veterans. You don't even know those people. I know they wouldn't forge my name, I said. I know they wouldn't call me a burden. Her mouth fell open. She hadn't expected me to talk back. For years, she was the only one allowed to throw words like knives. Now I had armor. You're sick, she hissed. You're confused, this is elder abuse. That's not how that word works, I said, eyes sharp. Behind her, Mrs. Callahan from across the street had her iPhone out, Camera rolling. Mr. Dunleavy leaned on his railing, watching like it was Saturday night TV. She noticed the stare, the silence. "Stop filming me," she screamed toward the neighborhood. "This is private family business." The moment the words left her mouth, 2 squad cars rolled up. Not fast, no sirens, but with purpose. "Ma'am," the first officer called, stepping out. "We've had multiple noise complaints. Gonna need you to step back from the residence." She turned to them, face red and trembling. "He's my father. He's mentally declining. He doesn't know what he's doing." "Sir," the other officer asked gently, stepping toward me, "do you know this woman?" I nodded once. "That's my daughter." "Do you feel threatened?" I paused, then answered, "Not anymore." The officers moved with quiet professionalism. One spoke to her as she fumed. The other stood guard near the porch. Her shouting turned into pleading, then back to screaming. Finally, she was escorted to her car, not arrested, just removed. But the damage had been done. Neighbors still watched, some with judgment, others with pity, but none with disbelief. I closed the door gently, returned to my chair by the window. Watched her drive off. Her tires squealed slightly, like she still thought noise could win. My phone buzzed, a text from Helen. "Saw the video already. She made her own coffin." I didn't reply, just stared at the backyard. The same grass she once played tag on as a child. The same tree where we hung her first swing. How far we'd fallen. I pulled out the envelope, the one with the signed documents, the amendment, the video clip saved to flash drive. All of it had been about protection. Not vengeance. Never vengeance. Just truth. Because if you stay quiet long enough, people think they can rewrite the story. But silence doesn't mean surrender. Sometimes it's just the calm before the verdict. And now, the world finally saw her without the costume, just a mirror, held steady long enough for everyone to look. Peace isn't loud. It's a quiet breath that doesn't tremble. The porch boards creaked beneath my chair as I leaned back, mug in hand. Steam curled into the cold morning air, rising like memory. The sun was just peeking through the trees, brushing gold across the yard. I hadn't seen a sunrise like this in years, not really seen it. The folder sat beside me, thick, worn at the corners. Inside, the will, amended, signed, witnessed, filed. Final. I stared at the horizon, not watching time but finally feeling it. The house behind me was still. No yelling, no slamming doors, no waiting for phone calls that never came. Just the creak of wood, the wind brushing through leaves, and the smell of good coffee. My hand rested on the folder. Inside was every decision I'd made and unmade. The scholarship fund in Ruth's name, the donation to the Veteran Center, the foundation to help children without fathers. Not out of charity, but out of balance. Justice when the courts are too slow and the love has run out. I thought of Ruth, of her laugh in this very porch swing, of the way she'd hum when she watered her roses. She'd always believed people show you who they are when they think you can't fight back. I wish she'd been wrong. I sipped again, let the heat settle. Thought of my daughter's last words. Thought of the years I'd bent over backwards, tuition, the car, the house. Not for praise, but for love. The kind I never got in return. "It's safe now," I whispered. To no one in particular, maybe to Ruth, maybe to my own bones. The wind picked up gently, like it heard me. The screen door tapped open behind me. James stepped out, holding 2 slices of toast on a napkin. "No yelling today?" he asked. "Not yet," I smirked. He handed me the toast, sat beside me. "Your lawn's too damn perfect," he muttered, suspicious. "I had time this week." He chuckled, biting down. Saw the news clip again, she's famous now. Infamous, I said. We let the silence linger, not heavy, just quiet. Then he nodded at the folder. You locking it up today? I nodded. Drawer, bottom one, where Ruth used to keep the family albums. He looked over at me. You good? I thought for a second. Not happy, not proud, but good. Yes. He patted my shoulder once and stood. Don't forget the sunrise. Some people miss it chasing shadows. He left me with that. I waited a moment longer, just me now. I stood bone slow but steady and picked up the folder. Walked inside. The floor held my steps like it used to. No creaks where there shouldn't be. No tension in the air. Just home. I went to the study, the same desk where I found her old birthday card. I opened the bottom drawer. Pulled out Ruth's photo, dusted it off. Set it beside the folder. And then I added the letter, the one my daughter wrote me when she was young. The one that said, "You'll always be my rock, Dad. Don't let me fall." I read it once more, then folded it slowly and slid it in beside the will. Two sides of the same coin. Love given, love lost. I closed the drawer gently. No slam, no finality. Just peace. And with that soft click, I didn't just shut a drawer, I closed it with dignity intact.